Welcome to the Council of Better Business Bureau's podcast, Better Business, Better Series, where we will explore top-of-mind topics with business and industry leaders to understand the leading trends and innovations that continue to push the envelope in today's marketplace.
Thank you for joining us on the Better Series podcast. I'm Nona Finn, your host for today's dynamic conversation. I'm also joined by James Lee, a new voice being added to our Better Series podcast. Say hello to our listeners, James.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
We are glad to have you. Well, spring is here and we are gearing up for the summer. But before we go there, let's not forget the need to spring clean to ensure the remnants of winter is well behind us. As you are sprucing up your office space, we urge everyone to spend a few minutes ensuring that the data your business is collecting is secure.
You know, a few simple, very basic steps can go a long way to safeguard your business against any number of potentially harmful or disruptive issues that could cause mayhem in your business if your data is compromised.
And James, we have someone in studio with us today to discuss these safeguards. Kelvin Coleman, Executive Director of the National Cybersecurity Alliance, is here to help small businesses understand why it's not only a good idea to ensure your data house is clean, but a must-do idea.
I've heard Kelvin say, if you're a business leader, it makes good sense to make this a priority for both you and your customers.
Yes, it does. And Kelvin, we just want to thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Better Series podcast.
Nona, James, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We are so glad and delighted you're here. Can we start by you sharing with our listeners what is the National Cybersecurity Alliance and the kind of support and resources a small business can obtain from your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you for having me. It's just a real pleasure to be here with you all. But the National Cybersecurity Alliance, we're a nonprofit public-private partnership focused on helping individuals and businesses, and particularly small and medium-sized businesses, right there at sort of the top of the list for us. We try to help them stay safer and more secure online. Our overarching mission is to educate and empower our global digital society to use the internet safely and securely. Now, we, work continuously to create and implement, far-reaching awareness and education efforts to empower everyone to learn about and practice good cybersecurity in the workplace and at home. One of our most invaluable resources is a program we have called Cybersecure My Business, right? Which was created to help protect the small and medium-sized business community as it relates to cybersecurity. And so we offer free interactive in-person training workshops, webinars, monthly newsletters summarizing recent hot topics. And so, I invite your listeners to please visit Cybersecure My Business online portal, which they can get through our website. So we encourage everyone to go to that site and check it out.
Well, since you've mentioned it, what is that site?
Thank you very much. StaySafeOnline.org. I guess that would help your listeners. So StaySafeOnline.org.
Well, and that's obviously a very important thing, and it begins with routine kind of activities like what we're talking about today. So we talked about the need to spring clean to clear out the remnants of winter. What does that look like in the cybersecurity world, and what does it look particularly for a small business if they're going to be digitally clean?
Yeah, a great question, James, because, this is the fifth year, by the way, that we partnered with the BBB on this extremely worthwhile initiative, right? So if you think about it, we try to leverage the annual sort of spring cleaning that people generally will do as we come out of winter into spring, as they declutter their house and as they sort of spruce it up, their yard. We do that in the digital realm by encouraging people to, delete old apps that are no longer in use, to ensure that all their software is up to date on all their internet-connected devices, right? PCs, smartphones, tablets. And when they're up to date, you reduce the risk of infection from malware. Again, declutter your mobile life, right? Most of us have these apps that we no longer use and some that need updating. Delete the unused apps and keep others current, including the operating system on your device. Do a digital file purge, right? What do we mean by that? perform a good, thorough review of your online files. There tend to be digital records, right? PC, on your phone, on PC, any device that you have to go through and sort of clean that stuff up. And it's becoming so important to do those things because we are just a increasingly interconnected society. And so that's what we mean, James. Some of the things we mean by doing a digital spring cleaning to make sure that you are owning your online presence, right? Reviewing the privacy and security settings on websites that you use to be sure that they remain set to your comfort level for sharing, right? And it's okay to limit how and with whom you share that information. It's just an ideal time to do that, to perform a digital spring cleaning.
That's so great, Calvin. I have to admit to both you and James that I am behind on my spring cleaning. I need to get on it. But can you tell our listeners why they should not fall behind as a business in ensuring that they're digitally clean and they maintain to be so?
Yeah, I mean, if you lead a small business, Nona, it makes good sense to make a digital spring cleaning or digital cleaning period a high priority. Both for the small business and the customers. I mean, think about the valuable data, right? Like confidential contacts, highly sensitive financial and health records,
Yep.
Which could potentially get into the wrong hands because, as James will well agree, in today's world, data equals currency, right?
Uh-huh.
And so data is so very important to the bad guys these days. And so it's very important for small businesses to do all that they can to protect that information. And as mentioned earlier, we have identified some precautionary measures that will keep you safe online, and not only this spring again, but all year round. Now, some of these things I mentioned, they can get a bit repetitive. I get it, but I give an example of every single year during cold and flu season. We're reminded by health officials to, stop the spread of germs by coughing into your elbow and washing your hands, right? That's a timeless message. And it's very effective, not the sexiest message in the world, right? Wash your hands and cough into your elbow to stop the spread of germs. But terribly effective. And these precautionary measures that we are recommending to people, again, probably not the most exciting thing in the world, but very, very valuable in protecting small businesses, individuals, families. For example, when we talk about having the latest updates, security software on your web browser and operating system, it's just one of the easiest ways to keep devices secure and protect data. We have a phrase that we use about lock down your login, right? Make sure that passphrases are lengthy and unique and safely stored. In addition, it is essential to fortify accounts by adopting strong authentication, multi-authentication where possible, which adds another layer of protection. And the very last thing I mentioned earlier as well, back it up, right? And, protect your data. Not talking about some dance move. We're talking about, digitally protecting yourself. So back it up in terms of protect your workplace data by making electronic copies or backups, right, of your most important files. Back them up this spring and set a schedule to do so regularly throughout the year. And I know some of your listeners are thinking, well, God, it seems like an awful lot to do. Well, it seems like an awful lot only relative to, society, small businesses not having to do it in the past, right? But again, we're so increasingly connected and vulnerable to cyber attacks. It becomes much more critical for us to have these simple, timely, action-oriented information to protect ourselves. It's just an absolute must these days.
I have a question. If I've never done this before, where is it that I start? Because I read the newspaper, I watch television, I listen to podcasts, and I am scared to death about all of these things that I see. So where do I begin? And part two of that question is, I have employees, and what should I be doing to help them
Great question.
be safe as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. A great question. If this is, sort of new to you and your first time, there are resources out there. Don't try and go it alone, right? Certainly, organizations like National Cybersecurity Alliance, again, statesafeonline.org is our website. We have a number of helpful tips, resources even, for you to start to look at, how to start to protect yourself. And so, and there are other organizations as well. The, Internet Theft Resource Center, right? I mean, there are organizations out there that can really provide the essential resources that you need to protect yourself. So if I'm a new person to this area and I'm trying to, understand where to start, there are people out there who have done this already, and they want to be able to help you through this. So I would absolutely go to those websites. And I'm so sorry I said Internet Theft. Is actually Identity Theft Resource Center that can help out and provide, free information. And so, again, utilize what's already out there, James, and other listeners who may be just starting out. Wonderful information out there also through the Department of Homeland Security, for example, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FCC. I mean, there are a number of ways out there that people can get more information about how to protect themselves online. StaySafeOnline.org, and again, the Identity Theft Resource Center, all places where you can get some great information.
Kelvin, that's great. And I do believe you have a digital spring cleaning checklist, right, that help us understand where to get started. Can you walk us through that checklist and some of the top tips within it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing you want to do as you start to look at your digital spring cleaning checklist, you want to start to think about, first and foremost, what's important to your business, right? What are the most valuable assets that you have, and are they connected to your technical infrastructure? How do you plan to protect those assets, right? How does your organization intend to detect vulnerabilities? And of critical importance is how do you respond to and recover from a cyber incident? So this is no different than what a business would do for preparing for some sort of physical, problem, right? Be it a fire or something of that nature. How do you recover from that? And small businesses are great, right, at developing those plans for a physical disruption. Well, we recommend the same thing in terms of cybersecurity, right? You want to be able to understand what your most valuable assets are and how to protect those assets. And again, detecting the vulnerabilities, right? It's no different than, having valuable products in a storage space and making sure the lock is, appropriate and strong and resilient, right? So that it makes it very hard for criminals to break into that storage facility. Transfer that to the digital world in the same way. Again, you want to make sure you have a strong password, that your system is up to date, and that you have these things backed up, because you're protecting your assets that way. And you're also detecting vulnerabilities that you may have. And just like you would, small businesses and others would prepare for, God forbid, something, physical disruption happening, more than likely they have a plan on how to respond and recover. No different in this realm of critical importance in responding and coming up with a plan to respond and recover from a cyber incident. Mm-hmm. And all of those things that I talked about earlier can be a part of this checklist. Once you do those 5 things that I just mentioned, you can move on to some tactical measures of how to address those things. And we, again, strongly recommend that small and medium-sized businesses, I'm going to give you the cough into the elbow again and wash your hands again, keep a clean machine. Update the software. You heard me say that a couple of times, and I think it's very important. Establish, a device policy. Like, what should a policy at your business? Is it a bring your own device policy, which is perfectly reasonable, but you have to have some parameters around that. Doing that digital file purge that we recommended for individuals earlier. Same thing with small and medium-sized businesses, and same thing with small and medium-sized businesses. Clean up your online presence. Make sure that you're as up to date as you possibly can be.
I'm probably going to give you another chance to talk about coughing in your elbow. But
We'll get it by the time this is over.
Yeah, right.
yeah, and every time you say that, I want to cough into my elbow. Because technology moves so fast, and there's always another headline about a breach. I mean, this week, one of the major security companies released a statistic that said that 61% of all businesses, including small businesses, have been breached already, and the rest, it's just a matter of time, essentially. So in that kind of an environment, we've gone through our spring cleaning, we're up to date, but how do we stay ahead? And what are the things we need to be looking for that tells us, hey, I may be behind and somebody may be trying to exploit that?
Very good question, James. Well, once you get up to date, right, it's much easier to stay current, right, stay protected, as opposed to catch up. And so once you do the more challenging part of getting your system up to date and making sure you're implementing some of these things that we recommend, some of these things that others recommend, it's actually fairly easy to keep those things up to date, because now you're just trying to make sure that the latest patches and the latest antivirus corrections and solutions are just kept up to date instead of trying to, again, catch up. So it's very easy to do that. And at this point, you're probably much more comfortable, much more secure, much more confident in discussing and looking at your own system, because you've gone through this original sort of catch-up phase and trying to understand it. And so in terms of staying current, fairly easy, because now you're not playing catch-up. In terms of the bad guys and trying to stay ahead of where they are, well, that's difficult for not only small and medium-sized businesses, that's difficult for state and local government. That's very challenging for the U.S. government, right? Because the bad guys don't have a bureaucracy or a hierarchy that they have to follow, right? They can just exploit a vulnerability when they see it. Whereas, small and medium-sized businesses and others have to see, okay, what's my budget and who's my point person and what's my communication plan? There are all these things on a checklist that we have to go through to get things done, appropriately so, by the way, some accountability, that type thing. But the bad guys don't have that. So we're always going to be somewhat behind them in terms of trying to mitigate this challenge. Now, having said that, we can make it very difficult for them, though, by doing some of the things we've talked about today. And I'm not going to cough into the elbow, but we've mentioned it enough to understand that some of these smaller things, some of these smaller actions that we can put into place can really frustrate the bad guys from getting our information. If you think of it no more than, again, a physical security situation, a house with a lock and a bolt is much more difficult to break into than a house with no lock at all, right? And cyber criminals, just like physical criminals, they don't want to do a lot of work, right? They want the most return for the least amount of work. And if the house is all locked up, it's probably going to go to the next house to see if that's unlocked, because that'll be an easier score, easier target for them. So, James, I think, the most difficult part is really getting up to date. But once you're up to date, it's fairly easy to stay there because, again, now you're understanding just how to do that.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, Calvin. Great visual pictures as well. I love that. Well, Calvin, we've come to the end of our podcast, and I just want to thank you for joining us today. Could you give us that cough into your elbow tip one more time?
Absolutely. And I got to feel I'm going to hear this forever from James when we see each other at different speaking engagements. But
yes, you will.
Keep it a clean machine. Again, what does that mean? Update the software on all of your company's devices, right? Your business devices. Establish a bring your own device policy, and delete software and apps you are no longer using. That's all under keeping a clean machine. 3 points under doing a digital file purge. Again, clean out old emails, unsubscribe from newsletters and email alerts that you no longer read. That can really go a long way in helping you out. Locking down your login, usernames and passphrases, passwords. Making sure they're robust and thorough and alphanumeric to provide yourself an extra layer of protection. And even when you can do multi-factor authentication, then that's also recommended. And lastly, own your online presence. Review again the privacy and security settings on websites you use to be sure they remain set to your comfort level. I've spoken to people who, that's not a big concern for them. Very, very few people, by the way. But the majority of folks want to make sure that they're protecting their information to the best of their ability, companies to the best of their ability. Yeah. So it's okay to limit how and with whom you share your information, because it's your information, it's your customer's information. And so you want to do your very best to protect that. So that's the cough in the elbow speech on cybersecurity.
Keep a clean machine. Thank you so much, Kelvin. Can you tell our listeners where they can learn more about NCSA and the resources you provide them?
Absolutely. Again, staysafeonline.org. All of our resources are available there for folks at no cost, for you and companies to download as they will and to brand, as they wish. And again, we're also available to, come out and visit and partner with folks. We do it all the time, and with other organizations. I know I mentioned them before, but again, like partnering with the Identity Theft Resource Center and others who are in this space, because we don't see it as a competition per se, but we do see it as a collaborative coordination effort where, rising tide, raises all boats, right? Yeah. Is kind of what we're striving for. And so certainly can go to our website to get more information, Nona. And, of course, get in touch with us if they have any further questions.
Thank you again, Kelvin, and thank you, NCSA, for helping small businesses with keeping their digital world clean. And we appreciate our listeners for tuning in to our Better Series podcast, where we bring you marketplace insights and trends. You can hear more great episodes on iTunes or any other streaming platforms. We will see you next episode.
You just enjoyed Better Business, Better Series podcast. Be sure to tune in next month for a brand new episode. To learn more about our other shows, visit betterbusiness.blueberry.com. That's betterbusiness.blueberry.com and subscribe. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guests, not those of the Better Business Bureau, Council of Better Business Bureaus, or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Blueberry's Terms of Service.